What's the sluttiest thing you've ever done? NSW. Threesome in rehab. It was two dudes and they asked really nicely if I would be offended if they high-fived during rehab, where the smokers become alcoholics. The alcoholics pick up smoking and everyone picks up freaking. Shared a bed with my GF at the time and her friend. I start kissing my GF. Her friend and I always had some sexual tension. My GF says so and so will be lonely if we do this. So my hand proceeded down the friend's pants. And a big old threesome happened and that relationship didn't last. Worth it. Good man. Way to bounce back. Had sex with my roommate the day I moved in. And it was the first time we'd ever met. Wasn't a good idea in the long run, but hey. This happened to me as well. Went out for drinks. One thing led to another. Fricked like rabbits for about a month, then realized we should probably stop. She ended up being one of my best friends after the week or two of weird. I went to some show in St. Petersburg, FL when I was about 19 or 20. Couldn't tell you what band it was, but I got pretty freaking drunk and was feeling incredibly frisky. I sat down on the sidewalk to wait for the band to come out so we could meet them, and there was this cute younger guy that came to sit next to me. He had a crazy Jufro and I really wanted to touch it. I drunkenly leaned over and tousled it without saying a word. He was clearly weirded out, but thought it was funny. We started talking. Then one thing led to another and started randomly making out right there on the sidewalk. Things escalated pretty quickly and we used the fire escape to climb up to the roof of the venue and frick. This all transpired in a window of about 15 minutes. I can't remember many details. I remember me telling him I didn't even know his name and this was freaking crazy as we were furiously unbuttoning and shedding clothing. I told him not to tell me what it was and said, "This'll be one heck of a story to tell your friends." He had a condom, but seemed confused and nervous putting it on, so I put it on for him. I just remember straddling him and going at it, looking down at the bars and people maybe 40 feet below us, oblivious to the fact that two strangers were fricking above them. Looking back, I bet that was this kid's first time and I bet he wasn't a day older than 16. Drunk Goggles said he was pretty hot, but my friend said he was meh. Sometimes I feel gross about it. Sometimes I feel like I rocked that kid's world and sometimes I just feel like I could have totally gotten super arrested for it. Whatever. If you're out there, kid, I had fun and I totally believe you. Good for you, I bet you rocked his world. Booty called a guy because he lived above Subway and I knew I was going to be hungover the next day and didn't want to have to walk very far. Genius. You paid your $5 like everyone else, but you sly fox, you got a foot and a half. I was in Spain during spring break of my junior year visiting two of my friends who were abroad there. I was doing a double major and minor and didn't have time to go abroad, so I looked at the trip as a way to get in some of that experience. It was my first time out of the country without a family member. One night we went out to a club, and I started dancing with this guy. He was cute, and I was drunk and looking for an experience. I tried to bring him back to my place, but the hostel wouldn't let him in. I wasn't about to go over to his, so we ended up fricking on a park bench next to the Prado Museum. I still have scars on my shins from scraping them on the edge of the bench while I was on top. Funny how there's like a 5-10% chance we have had sex on the same bench. The girl I'm seeing just dropped a bomb on me. After a torrid little fling over the course of a week that sparked the whole thing. She proved to be quite the freak. On a lark I throw out this same question, expecting the answer will be two guys at a party or eat a girl out in college. Instead she prefaces it with, "Promise not to judge me," and answers it with, 10 guys at the same time during a swingers party when I was dating my professor. Best not to ask questions you might not want the answer to in that type of situation. I was talking to two girls at once who both had an interest in me. That's my best I've ever been at. I freaking hate you all. My gymnast friend threw this after prom party. We had a couple of drinks and he kept boasting about how big his dong was. So naturally being frisky, drunk and a teenager, I asked him to show me. Lo and behold, the biggest sklong I have ever seen is throbbing in front me. So I ended up sucking him off in his wine cellar. His friend came looking for him and caught us in the act. I have no idea how, but I managed to convince his friend to let me blow him as well. We proceeded to have merry time. In my mouth. TL. Dr. I gave a BJ to 2 gymnasts on my after prom. Fricked my co-worker in the office bathroom. I was also not on break, so I was being paid at the time. Third party prostitution. Nicely done. A booty call of mine came over and we were hanging out and having a good time. Another booty call sent me a text asking if he could come over and hang out. I tell him to come over in an hour. Finish the deed with guy 1 and as I am letting guy 1 out, guy 2 walks in. They both look at each other for a second, nod while making eye contact. Guy 1 leaves and guy 2 comes back into my apartment. Was a good night. Your username only makes this more believable. I had sex with an 18-year-old German student in the bathroom of a hostel within 30 seconds of meeting her. Later that night, had sex with a 36-year-old British doctor on vacation in that same bathroom. I once went to a Halloween party dressed as an Olympic swimmer. I wore nothing but some tight but short shorts, some goggles, and a first place medal. Outslutted most of the girls, I'd say. I had a friend do a similar thing walking around downtown on Halloween, wearing nothing but a Speedo, goggles and an American flag like a cape. I had sex with my grandmother's hospice nurse in my grandmother's master bath. She died a couple hours after we were done. I still feel terrible about it. I've never told anyone this. Fricked a guy so I could play his Xbox. Nice try, Microsoft. On a sleepover I kissed a girl and things started getting really out of hand. Got to see, touch and play with boobs. Later I saw the 2 other girls eating each other out and proceed to cheer at them. I'm a female. I'm just imagining 2 girls eating each other out, while you're on the sidelines clapping, yelling crap like good work. Keep it up. I found a lost dog after a bad storm that was wandering the streets near work. I figured I'd play the hero and spent a good hour door knocking until someone recognized it and told me where the owners lived. The owner was an incredibly attractive young lady and maybe I've watched too much P here, but I figured I knew exactly how I'd be getting my thanks. So I hand the dog over and she's all go thanks so much, oh how I miss the poor puppy, and I stood around all ready for my reward but she kind of just trailed off into silence and went inside and it all got a little bit awkward, so I put my pants back on and went home. Should have peed on her doorstep to mark your territory. I went to a toga party in a skin-tight pink bedsheet, got trashed, let 3 dudes motorboat me and flashed someone I didn't even know. Then I made out with some guy that played the trombone. And that, my friends, is the sum of my theater studies. And they all laughed when I took up trombone. Banged a girl who was engaged. Found out later that he knew and approved. I was supposed to be her last frick, get it out of her system thing. Found out a few years later that they divorced. Big surprise there. I'm a gay guy BTW. During my horrible depression, met a guy on the train in Stockholm. Saw him looking at me like crazy and I thought he's probably looking behind me. And then he approached me and said he'd give me money if I slept with him. I would have with or without the money. But we went to his place and he cooked dinner for me and romantic stuff. Not what I expected, and we had sex. It was great. And to this day we see each other every day and I am so happy. He saved my life. Because I was planning on taking my life. Being S saved my life. Went to a friend's pre-drinks gathering. When we went out I took one of the lads I just met home at about 2 AM for a quickie. Then went back out and went home with a guy who'd been on my list for ages. 2 in one night and none the wiser. Copper face jacks. Misdialed the phone. It was a chick on the other end instead of Papa John's. She was being silly, so I kept offering up humorous quip after humorous quip. Asked her if she ever went rock climbing. She hadn't. We hang up and meet at local community center where they have a rock wall for climbing an hour later. Had so much fun. We stopped off at a motel and shagged like rabbits. Best wrong number ever. One time I touched my hairdresser's left boob with my shoulder. It all happened by accident, but I sure felt like a filthy W afterwards. I read this in Butter's voice. I'm a girl. I slept with the girlfriend of a soldier who was deployed to Afghanistan. I'd been flirting with her for a few days but only found out he existed the morning after. So when he got back we had a threesome. It was awesome. That sounds like a great gift for him. Was a tryst in Vegas. Buddy had gotten a table with some bottles. I was a junior in college at the time, so the bottle service thing still got me going. We are all hanging out drinking for a bit when a dude comes up to our table, points at me and says, "My wife likes you. Come to our table." So I did. Next thing I know, we are drinking champagne and talking. The husband is just kind of smirking and watching. He gets up to leave for the bathroom. I'll never forget this. Gives me an odd smile and says, "You better be making out with my wife." By the time I get back, I was drunk, young and frisky. Also was in a relationship. So this moment is not in my moral hall of fame. So why the heck not? Husband gets back, says, "Let's all go up to the room." When we get in, they lay down the rules. She looks at me, "Here's how it is gonna go. I'm going to suck your dong." While my husband watches, she slides off her black dress, still wearing the heels, kneels in front of me and gets to work. The husband whips it out and beats off the whole time. I had to close my eyes to keep from catching his stare. When it was getting to the end, she said, "Come on." My face, I had never done that at this point, so pulled out shot my glory. I was still naked when they handed me all my clothes and pushed me into the hallway of the win. I felt real S. TLDR. Wife blew me in Vegas while creepy husband watched. After tons of flirting, I finally agreed to go hang out at the house of this guy I had met in my lit class. I walk in and the place looked like John Wayne exploded inside a hunting lodge. Bear heads, elk heads, moose, rabbit, whatever animal you could think of are decking the walls. Tons of Native American blankets and patterns, bearskin rugs, wood furniture, you name it. It was as if someone had distilled the Wild West down into a single room. Needless to say, the guy liked hunting, which was fine, but the vibe I was getting kind of put me off. But he was incredibly hot and seemed fun, not to mention he was game for talking about most anything and never let the conversation get awkward, so we had a great time. Conversation turns to sex and we both get really frisky. End up doing it. Good times are had by all. Afterwards, as we're sitting in his bed, he asks me if I had any fantasies we could try out next time. I mention I think cowboy hats and boots are a big turn on, which seems like a reasonable request considering his decor. He looks at me kind of funny, which makes me think I've fricked up, but he shakes it off and tells me no problem. Next time we meet up, I guess he must have went out and bought himself the whole outfit because he looks stunning. I jump his bones. I will neither confirm nor deny if the phrase "ride me cowboy" was uttered that night, but some serious Brokeback Mountain crap went down. After we're laying in bed, we start talking. I finally ask him about the decor. Come to find out, the reason his house looks like something straight out of The Most Dangerous Game is he's a Native American and it's one of his ways to stay close to his heritage. I am forever shamed. TLDR. Made a Native American guy literally get fricked by the image of his cultural oppressors, all because I wanted to have a little bit of roleplay fun. Oh, I thought someone was going to be fricking a moosehead by the end of this story. This Friday just gone, I participated in a C and Mick fueled gangbang in some random dude's kitchen. Did not use protection. Do not know the girl's name, and now my nickname at the pub is the Stud Bull. I am asking myself some serious questions about my life. Woke up next to the girl I was seeing. Had sex. Met my ex for lunch in order to exchange some personal belongings we had of one another. After a couple glasses of wine, we went back to her apartment and had sex. I went out to a party that night and ran into a girl I saw in high school. Got drunk. Went back to her apartment and had sex. Hat trick, baby. I had sex with 3 girls the same night, on 2 different occasions. First was in a toilet bathroom, second time was in a bedroom at the party. I felt very dirty the day after and got tested, was HIV Aladdin, and then got together with my girlfriend 2 weeks later and have never been S since. Upvote for HIV Aladdin. While studying abroad in Spain, I got a blowjob from a Belgian girl in the Brussels airport bathroom at 5:30 AM who I had just met 20 minutes prior. Proud. Definitely proud. Should probably use a throwaway, but what's shame for guys over one weekend? 2 ex-boyfriends, a brother of an ex-boyfriend and some guy I picked up in a bar. I'm a terrible person. You're not a terrible person. Horses are terrible people. I was out one night and bumped into a girl that I knew really had the hots for me, and she only lived on the next street. She was out with a female friend of hers who was staying at her place. Later, We agreed to share a taxi and said girl invited me into her place. After grabbing some food they decided we watch some TV and put the film Wall-E on. It was winter at this point and I don't think the heating was on, so the girl whose place it was grabbed a blanket and placed it over us all. We were joking around for a while and it came to my drunken consciousness that both these chicks probably had the hots for me. I proceeded to slip my hands under the blanket, to which either girl was sat either side of me, and up each of their thighs, slowly gauging the reaction of both of them. The girl whose house it was looking at me with a kind of, "I can't believe you're doing this next to my friend, you crazy bastard," kind of face, but she gladly let me continue. Other girl was appearing to be deeply engrossed in the movie, but made the odd subtle movement that indicated to me she was enjoying herself sexually. Proceeded to do this for about 20 minutes then went home. I still wonder to this day if they both spoke about what I was doing to both of them under those sheets and if the words, "What? He was fingering you too," were uttered. I felt so smug. Dirty, but smug. TLDR. Fingerblasted. Two girls sat either side of me under a blanket whilst watching a film. Neither of them picked up on what I was doing to the other. They knew. You just missed the opportunity for the threesome. I had sex with 3 of my female friends. I'm a female as well. While one of my guy friends, who was dating one of the girls, watched, but he later ended up participating as well. At one point in the night, I ended up tied up with a gag in my mouth, and as my friend started using a vibrator on me, her dad's friends burst in, high as frick, to see what all the noise was. So, while I was tied up, having sex with 4 of my friends, my friend's dad's friends were high, screaming through the door that we were going to heck for what we were doing. One of my friends was trying to hold the door closed on them, but they would occasionally push the door open far enough to see me in all of my tied up glory. 'Twas a beautiful night. But they would occasionally push the door open far enough to see me in all of my tied up glory. I'm imagining your girlfriends and the guy taking turns to try to hold the door closed. This part takes the story to a whole new level of sluttiness. Awesome. I blew a married guy that I had only met once before in his car. It was lame. He came in like 7 seconds and when I looked up some poor woman was staring horrified in the car next to us. I was going to post, but then I read some responses and realized I'm better off posting in a list your relatively tame sexual experiences thread. You nasty, Reddit. And I mean that in the nicest way. Sucked my boyfriend's friend off while my boyfriend fricked me and now I can't wait to do it again. BF friend told him I gave him the best head. I'm a female. I had a threesome with my wife and the girl that was her maid of honor this past Halloween. It was much more fun than the 3 of us even expected it to be. 3 girls in one day. My ex-fiancée, my ex-girlfriend, and my coke plug, who I actually ended up dating for almost a year. Sad thing is that I didn't even fully enjoy the latter 2 hookups. They were kind of just an effort to clear my head after hooking up with my ex-fiancée and having her tell me she didn't want to get back together after the fact. So I was at this party drunk as heck blah blah blah. Talked to these 2 girls, one who I've run into a few times at open mics and stuff. Apparently both of them wanted to go home with me, but L, the open mic girl, goes home with this French dude instead. I end going home with the other girl, B, and I am too drunk to adequately perform. I basically collapsed while on top of her and rolled off without getting anything done. As she's putting on her clothes and I'm passing out, I managed to put a finger up in the air and say, "Rain check." She seemed to be ye whatever, but she did take me up on it later and I def made good on it. B gets in contact with me the next day and says that L really wants to hang out, but they're not really on speaking terms with each other for some drama llama reason. L is apparently moving to another town in a week or so, and she gets in touch saying that she always wanted to hang out with me, which is poorly concealed code for she wanted to frick me, so we hang out at night. All this time I neglect to tell her that I already slept with B, because apparently L called dibs on me even though she went home with the French butthole. So for a time I was having sex with 2 estranged best friends, one of whom did not know hat I was fricking the other. At one point I left B at a bar a few hours after fricking her to go frick L back at my house. Then a week later, I'm drunk as frick at a party on a Thursday night and I see both of them roll up together. For a moment I have the biggest "oh I'm frick now" feeling, but it turns out they resolved their differences or whatever. We party. L leaves with a freshman to unknowingly take his V card, and I pass out with B in the back of L's van. I wake up at 7:30 am on Friday the next morning, alone in the back of this hoopty van, across the street from a Lutheran grade school as the kids are getting dropped off by their moms. I split super fast. TLDR. Frick two estranged best friends. One didn't know, left one at a bar to go frick the other. Woke up in a van across the street from a grade school. It was an interesting few weeks. Well, in 11th grade I had sex with my youth minister's daughter in the attic of the church while we were supposed to be getting props for the Easter play. When I was in college I lived with 5 fraternity boys and 1 other guy. I'm a girl. I always slept with the friends the other guy brought over. He had hot friends. I also made sure to sleep with all of the new initiated fraternity brothers, 2 in one night even. I got a lot of dong in college. It was great. Had sex with a Danish girl whose name I didn't remember. Finished up, walked her back to her dorm room, and went back to bed. My Canadian roommate that I hadn't met arrived shortly thereafter. She blew me. Straight after, I woke up the Danish girl again, banged her in a room full of people. Then I polished off a tub of Häagen-Dazs pistachio. I know that every night people go out to party in college. Their end goal is to get laid. But one night, I went out absolutely determined to get laid. At a party I went to, I got a girl's number who was obviously down to frick. Let's call her Rebecca. Later on at the party, I met another girl who wanted to leave with me, so we went back to my dorm. Let's call her Claire. We hooked up, but she told me she didn't want to have sex. I respected her wishes, but I had told myself I was getting laid that night, and I'm never one to let myself down. So I acted like I really enjoyed getting hickeys from Claire, and while she buried her head in my neck, I texted Rebecca, literally behind Claire's back, to arrange a meetup. Once Rebecca was on her way, I started acting really tired and Claire got the hint and left. 2 minutes later Rebecca came over and I achieved my goal of getting laid that night. TLDR. Texted a girl to come over and frick while I was hooking up with a different girl. Made this account just for sharing this story. I'm pretty sure I've outslutted most of the people in this thread. Hope I'm not too late. If this gets upvoted enough I'll share another story from high school that is also pretty good. In Korea a few years ago, I got beer drunk at a soccer match and went home with one of the locals who spoke zero English. My Korean is also very limited. I slept over and we had morning sex before we shared a kimbap for breakfast. I went back to my apartment to get rested and ready to meet my gal pals that evening in Itaewon. We went out and after a few soju cocktails I locked eyes with this Japanese model in the city for business. I snuck away from the girls for an hour and we went to a love motel down the street. He passed out and I put my face back on and left in pursuit of my group. Instead I ran into a group of international engineers and hit it off with a French guy. We went back to his high-rise apartment and had sex till the sun came up and we fell asleep. We spent the next day lounging naked around the apartment with the windows opened, drinking mimosas and smoking. We had McDonald's delivered and had some more fun. We actually ended up dating for a few months, but those are stories for another thread. TDLR. Slept with 3 different men of different nationalities within 24 hours. Fondled with classmates' boobs. During class. In 6th grade. We were in the very back row and everyone's looking forward. So it went on for about 20 minutes. I've never touched any boobs since and I'm 23 now. Kinda funny how life goes sometimes. My own personal repost. From a thread a few months ago. This will probably get buried, but here you go. When I was just barely 18, my grad class went on a trip whitewater rafting. We all boarded the bus, picking up groups of people in cities along the way. At one stop a set of twins, male, get on the bus and sit near me and my other girlfriends. They bust open a case of beer and 2 hours later we are naked on the Greyhound charter bus playing some silly truth or dare type game. Fast forward a day, we've all been rafting and drinking all day. I have been all over Steve, I don't actually remember his name, and we are about to find a quiet place, until Sean, twin brother, might not be his name either, shows up and follows us to the tent. Well, what's a girl to do when faced with this situation? Invite them both inside the tent, of course. And so commences my first threesome, my first Eiffel Tower, my first sex in a tent. I specifically remember them high-fiving each other. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.